And we see at this time cross-gender behavior, what Richard Green from UCLA called the sissy boy syndrome. Sissy boy syndrome, or gender nonconformity, which is a high prediction, as in 75%, high prediction of adult homosexuality, bisexuality, or transgenderism. During this period of time, we have the false self, the good little boy, the boy who is inhibited in his vitality. He's constricted, he's obedient, he's polite, he's clean. He goes to school in the morning in a white shirt, he comes back at 3 o'clock with a white shirt. He envies the bad boys. He envies, he gets excited, but he doesn't know how to break through that barrier to connect with them. I remember a client saying to me, he said, every morning my mother would comb my hair, make that line, and spray it with hairspray. And all day long he'd walk around, the kids would touch his hair and say, look at the kid with the plastic hair. You know, so it's that kind of rigidity. During this period of time we see, we talked about this. So alienation from the body. So they don't have this internalized sense of masculinity. So as they're going into adolescence, the body is developing into a masculine body, but they don't own it. It's alien to themselves. It's like a child who was never told he was intelligent and he gets an A on the test. He can't really own it. He really can't claim it for himself. And we see excessive modesty in boyhood. Well, my father would walk around with his shirt off, my older brother would walk up, but there's this cover-up. I remember a client saying to me, he said, I remember distinctly at 7, by the way, he didn't remember it until he saw the presentation, and then he came up to me afterwards. He says, I remember. I was 7 years old and I was taking a bath, and my mother and my aunt were giving me a bath, and something happened with the water, the faucet or something, and they had to call my uncle, and when my uncle walked into the bathroom, I covered up. He said, even then at 7 years old, I knew there was something wrong with that, but he didn't understand it. And so we see in adulthood the reaction against excessive modesty, exhibitionism, and we see exhibitionism in the homosexual. There's a sexual excitement at just being seen, because it's really an eroticization of an emotional need to be seen, to be reflected, to be acknowledged as a man by a man. That's what the motivation is, to be seen as a man by a man, but it's become eroticized. Sexual abuse, man-boy sexual contact, and homosexual outcome. Gay activists, gay apologists would say no, but the fact is that there is a high correlation. 1/3 of our homosexual clients were sexually abused by older boys or men. And in the personal histories of homosexual gay men, not just our clients, but gay men, there is same-sex abuse. And of course we know that those who abuse become abusers, and that gay activists are more likely to lobby for the lowering age of sexual consent. Moving into adolescence, 12 years old to adulthood, we see the erotic transitional phase. The erotic transitional phase now is all this psychological stuff that we've been talking about, all this identification stuff that we've been talking, now becomes sexualized. And usually our men will report their first same-sex attraction, their clear, explicit sexual moment around 12 years old. It could be younger if there was sexual molestation from an older person. If your client is reporting sexual experiences before 12, 11, 10, 9, 8, you could be sure that there was an adult involved. Homosexual behavior as a reparative drive. Again, it's the understanding that same-sex behavior is an attempt to repair your childhood emotional hurts. And this is the good news. This is the optimism. That you're telling the client, look, you're not just some kind of weirdo, you're not some kind of pervert, a sinner. You are trying to fulfill your emotional needs. Again, the 3 A's, attention, affection, approval, but you're trying to do it on a sexual level, and it's not working. And you know it's not working, that's why you're here. A great quote from Marlon Brando, I used to be homosexual, but it didn't work. Marlon Brando. So associated features of male homosexuality is male gender deficit, as we've been talking about, problems with assertion. A lot of their authentic assertion becomes eroticized and acted out sexually. Detachment from men, the anticipation of rejection. And we need to also understand that there's a great deal of pathology associated with the homosexual condition. Again, definition of pathology is self-defeating, self-destructive, maladaptive behavior. And there are many, many studies that show this, but I'm going to give you two quick ones. 1991 study, Archives of General Psychiatry, substantially higher levels of mental health problems in gay-identified men, including suicide attempts, anxiety disorder, major depressions, eating disorders, substance abuse like drugs and alcohol. And this was conducted in New Zealand and the Netherlands, which is supposedly more liberal, more accepting. So how much can we attribute that to homophobia? The other study, also 1999, Archives of Sexual Behavior, survey of 2 million Danes in Denmark, which happened to be, by the way, the first country to permit gay marriages in 1989. Again, gay men came from families that were where there was more divorce. And the shorter duration of the marriage of their parents, the more likely they were to be gay identified. And we saw, again, father absence or an unknown father. Why are we talking about pathology? This is not gay bashing. This is educational, because young people are not being told this. They're not being told. And we have an obligation to educate and to inform. Failure of the male couple. Many, many studies show that, especially now with the talk of gay marriage. But again, the studies show that these relationships do not last long term. One quick study, McWhirter and Mattson, 1984, and really McWhirter and Mattson, their studies have been replicated many, many times, but I mentioned their study because they were two gay activists themselves. McWhirter was a gay psychiatrist, Madison was a gay psychologist. They were in relationship with each other for 12 years, and they were determined to prove that gay men were capable of maintaining long-term sexual fidelity. And they found 165 of the best gay relationships. How many of those 165 of the very best gay relationships were able to maintain sexual fidelity for more than 5 years? Take a guess. Answer, 0. None of them. And so the researchers say their advice to their gay readers is, if you want your gay relationship to last long term, more than 5 years, don't expect sexual fidelity. Andrew Sullivan, so-called gay conservative, said at the end of his life, the gay man has two kinds of male relationships: those that he is friends with and those that he has sex with. That's separation. So we know that there's a search for maleness, promiscuity, and short-term relationships. Okay, 5 steps toward change for our clients. Number 1, to understand the origins of one's attractions. To realize that it's not just about sex. These are unmet emotional needs that are trying to be met. To keep the client staying honest with his feelings, to get beyond the shame, and to just look at what he's doing and to understand why he's doing it. The importance of male friendships, which is a big part of reparative therapy. Taking responsibility for his behavior, not in a moralistic way, but to understand. When the client tells me he acted out, the first question I ask him is, how were you feeling about yourself just before you decided to act out? And sure enough, it'll be that, what we call the gray zone. Dead, flat, lonely, hopeless, empty, hollow inside. And that becomes the focus of the therapy, not the homosexual activity. The last one is the religious dimension. While reparative therapy is a separate, empirically based treatment, certainly the client who is coming in with a religious perspective it's an important part of their healing process. It gives them the support and the encouragement and the reason to continue to work. That's my whole presentation. No time for Q&A. We're going to go for lunch. Thank you.